you for coming first and foremost, and I also hope all of you have a happy holiday and a great, wonderful new year with lots of good things happening. So I am Assemblywoman Aileen Gunther, and as chair of the Assembly Standing Committee on Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities, I would like to welcome you to the public hearing on access to medical health and developmental disability supports and services. Every budget cycle requires the state to utilize its fiscal resources in order to meet the needs of its citizens, each whom have unique priorities and demands. This is why today is so important. It provides an opportunity for committees to engage with state agencies, mental health and developmental disability services providers, advocates, and other stakeholders to ensure that programs are funded properly. Individuals are receiving quality care, services are readily available, and meet the needs of those who need them. I would like to thank everyone who has taken the time to speak before the committee today. Each witness will have 10 minutes to summarize their written testimony and answer questions from the panel of members. I'm eager to hear from all of you today, and I'm hopeful that after today, we can all have a better understanding of how we can move forward together to ensure that individuals receive safe and quality care that is available on demand.
Hi.
Hi, Amber. I'm sorry it took so long to get to the end.
Forgive me, I've never done this before. Can you hear me okay? Yeah? My name is Amber Decker. I'm a family peer advocate, and I want to thank you for your commitment and service to the state's most vulnerable population. I do hope not to offend anyone with what I have to say today, but I feel compelled to speak as a parent of a child with autism and as the daughter of a parent with a serious mental illness who is also elderly. I have a unique perspective when it comes to today's subject matter. I'm in contact with hundreds of parents, advocates, and providers, and the struggles that these families deal with so that their loved ones with intellectual and developmental disabilities can get services and remain in the community is heroic and heartbreaking. Many parents have lost their jobs and had to go on public assistance themselves due to the demands of helping their disabled children and other family members. We all need New York State's Office of People with Developmental Disabilities to aid in providing dignity to society's most vulnerable members. I've been reaching out to OPWDD and the New York State Department of Health since 2015, when my parent was passively enrolled into a new Medicaid managed care plan product called HARP, Health and Recovery Plan. She was also enrolled in a health home since 2011. I first reached out to the Medicaid redesign team to express my frustration and concerns, actually through the Justice Center, with care management and its lack of coordination and training, because every time my parent went to the emergency room, the care manager would call the hospital discharge team and make promises to coordinate and follow up with my parent, who is bipolar. Unfortunately, those promises were never kept, and I found my parent being prematurely discharged repeatedly each time she went to the emergency room. It was not until I disenrolled my parent from the health home that she finally received the care that she needed. Health homes for my parent created barriers, confusion, and frustration, did not allow for person-centered planning goals to be developed, and made access to home and community-based services somewhat impossible. I also found myself as her caregiver, proxy, and power of attorney excluded and left out of the conversation. Most of you may not know that the most common health home form, called the DOH 5055, which allows for various interconnectability, so to speak, of individuals' data, does not include any line or space for caregivers, proxies, or loved ones, or parents. My concerns in 2016 were that the same hardships, confusion, and chaos that the seriously mentally ill population have been facing since mandatory enrollment would now be imposed on the IDD population. The New York State and the Office of Mental Health are by no means complete with the transition of mental health service system from Medicaid fee-for-service to managed care payment model, as there remains many individuals without assisted community treatment. Waiting lists in New York City for this service is still very, very long. As you have already heard, claims for home and community-based service utilization are minuscule compared to the need. Self-direction is still in the pilot stages for the health and recovery program population and not accessible to all enrolled by any means. I was assured by various Medicaid redesign team representatives that the mistakes from the OMH transition would not happen to the OPWDD population. Health Homes has been rolled out and imposed on OPWDD's population without a pilot or test run. The Care Coordination Organization Health Home Provider Policy Guidance Manual states, quote, CCO health homes are required to meet the following HIT standards in the delivery of the CCO health home core services. CCO health homes are required to meet the final standards within 6 months of program initiation. So we're now 1 month away from that deadline, and there has been nothing but crashes and failures repeatedly from Metasced, which is the electronic health record as a part of the health information technology standards that all 7 Care Coordination Organization health homes utilize. The Care Coordination Organization's health home application refers to the new life plan as, quote, requiring and employing a standardized care plan to be used by care managers, which will be known as the life plan, to develop and meet the care planning requirements of the health home. This statement alone, to me, is enough to understand the role of Care Coordination Organization health homes. The care plan is not used by the individual or the families, but by the care manager. In fact, the very concept of managing one's care seems to aim at data control and does not address or speak to coordination of services, healthcare education, utilization management, nor does care management speak to facilitating access to inclusive options or advocacy services. This does not even begin to sound like the promise or commitment to person-centered planning, nor does care management speak to valued outcomes of the OPWDD and the programmatic objectives of the People's First waiver transformation. Health and Human Services has already paid CCO health homes over $200 million, yet tens of thousands of participants have not been assigned a care manager. CCO health homes are months behind in their schedule of creating life plans. That it is highly unlikely that 100,000 will be completed by June 30th, 2019, which is their deadline. The CCO Health Home Provider Policy Guidance Manual further asserts that, quote, the individual life plan is accessible to the individual and the family representative and is based on the individual's preference of either electronically and or via email. I know that I and no one that I know has been provided with access to their life plan, and we should be asking why that is. The state does not have control over the health homes or the CCO health homes. It seems like OPWDD has no idea what the CCOs are doing, and this was just all hype. The details were not looked into. Managed care capitation makes it impossible to detect Medicaid fraud. Without a useful high-end quality electronic health record for the delivery of long-term services and supports, there will continue to be a lack of service delivery and oversight for these populations. Healthy Competition was 500 mom and pop MSCs agencies. The new monopoly of Care Coordination Organization health homes takes aim at inefficiently replacing humans with robots, setting non-evidence-based assessments as barriers to services time and time again. As we have seen too often, many of these algorithms simply do not work, nor should they replace the clinical expertise of a qualified impartial party. Yet even clinicians and nurses find themselves frustrated and unable to override algorithms that they know are incorrect. Care management does not aim at meeting standards that are in the Home and Community-Based Services final federal rules. Without a functioning long-term services and supports electronic health record, this is and will continue to be a huge mess for a highly vulnerable population. Besides rolling out this transition without meaningful stakeholder engagement, there remains numerous conflicts of interest on OPWDD's advisory bodies, including the Joint Advisory Council for Managed Care. I continue to reach out to OPWDD to ask about the managed care transition without much response. MSC's, yes.
I'm just going to go back.
No problem.
You're reading.
Sorry.
There remains numerous conflicts of interest on most of the OPWDD advisory bodies.
Correct.
Can you just elaborate on that just a bit?
Sure. I mean, I would be more than happy to follow up in writing specifically as to what I'm saying. Okay. Well, for example, one of the CCOs.
You can find my email.
Sure.
So I'm absolutely fine.
Well, I'll just say that one of the CCO Health Homes CEOs, who happens to be a parent of a child with a disability, which I respect, but still, has been on the Joint Advisory Council for Medicaid Managed Care, which is a body that is in the law. It's affiliated with the Medicaid Managed Care Advisory Review Panel. He's a CEO of a health home, and he's just been sitting on this body, and they haven't talked about the Department of Health's RIO forms or anything really, other than a partner's health and policy plan of dual eligibles, which is only 11,000 people. So
you can
yes, I will finish this up, and I will write to you specifically. I continue to reach out to OPWDD to ask about the managed care transition without much response. MSCs previously cost less than $300 million per year, whereas CCO health homes are on target to cost over $600 million per year. The most that OPWDD seems to be willing to acknowledge is that there are some challenges and glitches. The Medicaid redesign team created a list of dozens of legislative changes it needed to launch its assault on home and community-based services, and the legislature rubber-stamped virtually all of them. Where are the checks and balances? Where is the legislative oversight of the executive? How is it that the representative, how is this a representative democratic process? The legislature must question the motives of the executive branch. The high-sounding rhetoric of care management is a hollow, sick joke in reality, where Medicaid managed care plans, health homes, and CCOs get paid millions and do nothing to benefit the sick and disabled New York citizens. OPWDD insiders exit the revolving door into multi-million-dollar private sector jobs, while tens of thousands of vulnerable participants cannot get anyone to answer the phone. Hospitals fail to do common sense discharge planning because when the patient gets sick again and gets readmitted, the hospital earns vast thousands more dollars. New York State and DSRIP, Delivery System Reform Incentive Payment Program, have so starved community-based organizations that they cannot meet the demand without going bankrupt. It's clear that the Medicaid redesign team is all about agency-centered planning, not person-centered planning. The legislature controls the tax revenue purse strings. Taxpayers expect the legislature to spend tax dollars wisely to benefit people who have no other means of support. Taxpayers do not expect tax dollars to benefit well-connected insiders at the expense of vulnerable people with serious mental illness and developmental disabilities. OPWDD has no idea whether its hundreds of millions of taxpayers' dollars are reaching disabled participants or not. It is as if OPWDD is writing a blank check to the CCO health homes and only requiring CCO health homes to give pious verbal assurances that they are doing the right thing, which often amounts to accepting bold-faced lies at face value. The legislature must independently develop its own expertise and must be prepared to challenge the executive branch's budget and policy requests. If the Medicaid redesign team is permitted to advance unchecked, the state will soon have an expanding human rights crisis on its hands. Not to mention a fiscal crisis when thousands of people are forced out of the community and back into the horrors of life in large institutions. There is no mistaking the Medicaid redesign team's agenda in turning back the clock and to lock away people with serious mental illness and developmental disabilities out of the community, out of sight, out of mind, and at great profit to hospitals and nursing homes. I want to share with you a quote from a fellow advocate named Mary Somoza, a governor-appointed member of the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities on the Commissioner's Advisory Council. She was appointed by every governor since 1991. She states, "I have seen such a tremendous lack of transparency coming out of this whole stealth operation to put our family members under the control of CCOs, a disaster happening as we speak, and eventually managed care. Parents are terrified, as many of us are aging and wondering what will happen when for-profit entities decide what level of care our children and young adults will have when we are no longer around to advocate for them." And stakeholders like us, every family member who has had a child or adult with a developmental disability has not been brought into the decision-making process. We have not been informed of where we are in the process until it's too late, and we simply find ourselves overwhelmed with the speed at which this is occurring. We look at what is happening to ICS and GuildNet, both who are now bankrupt because they provided care to the highest needs individuals with disabilities, and we are seeing the writing on the wall of where this is all going. You will overwhelm family members who have dedicated their lives to keeping their children in the community, and many of them will give up and surrender to the nursing home industry. Is this what you want? I ask you to reconsider the track the state is on right now, and think about that infamous word, Willowbrook. Remember what happened there? When you make decisions, in the age we live in, it could still happen. Please do not let that happen. I will end by saying that the complete absence of care coordination for tens of thousands of participants who had previously had an MSC cannot be described as better care, as it has been replaced by care management. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, if you want to write about that to me, I would appreciate it. And I thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
I think we're done now.